Geek Time.
Coming countdown control. The liquid hydrogen vent valve has been closed and flight pressurization is underway.
To Geek Time.
Mark and counting.
If you know how to give the Vulcan hand sign, if you've never kissed a girl or tasted wine, if you write all your papers in Linux, then you know it's Geek Time. If you still live with your parents and you're 38 years old, you got a pocket protector and you blog about having a cold. It's Geek Time. Can't wait to get an iPad. It's Geek Time. You're like Vogel and Superbad. It's Geek Time. You got a coffee mug warmer and an Iron Man mask. It's Geek Time. You dress up and go to Comic-Con. It's Geek Time. You know all the lines from Wrath of Khan. It's Geek Time. You like asteroids and shiny droids and iPhones. It's Geek Time. Time to get a life. It's Geek Time. You will never get a wife. It's Geek Time.
The next generation. Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Welcome to Geek Time, the next generation. Hosted by Chris Bors.
Don't cross the stream.
Make it so.
And Tim Warner.
Never tell me the odds.
The Sirius radio show is back for the next generation.
Get to the chopper!
All right, guys, we're back, and it's not just Geek Time. It is Geek Time, the next generation. Yep, we are rebooting this franchise, and I am Chris Boris. I have the Irate Gamer channel on YouTube. I've been doing a lot of commentary on all things geeky for years, so I feel like I'm a good representative of this. And then I have with me Tim Warner as a co-host.
Hey, everybody!
Hey, Tim. He's been in the background of a lot of Irate Gamer productions. So, and we talk about all kinds of things geeky in the background as well. So I thought he'd be a great compliment to this show. Now, let me talk about a little bit of the history of Geek Time, because if you listen to the Geek Time that in its first incarnation on Sirius Radio, it aired from 2009 to 2014. It was on for 5 seasons. And this was a show I loved. And it was actually the very first geeky type show that existed. I mean, this predated Nerdist, all those ones that you saw out there. And I just loved the show so much. The hosts were great, Ralph Sorella and John Hine. And they just talked about all things geeky. And they had the awesome guests. And it was just all around great. And then I was sad in 2014 they kind of ended the show. And I even reached out to them back in 2018 because Avengers was ramping up and things like that. And I wanted something to wet my palate and get me ready for this like the ultimate geek fest that was coming. And I reached out to them, and they made it very clear that they did not want to come back. They just, they were ready to let things lie. And so I was like, gosh, I want Geek Time back in its in its old glory. So I'm hoping, I got all the old sound bites and drops, things like that. So I went all out and trying to bring back that feeling. So if you like the old show, I hope this kind of gels with what you're used to. And it's kind of sad because I know one of the hosts died last year. So yeah, this is kind of like a love letter to what was. And I tried to make it, I'm going to try to make this show as close to the original as possible. And one of the cool things is I was able to find like the entire history of the old Geek Time show has been scrubbed from the internet. You can't find it anywhere. But I was able to find a crazy collector that had the entire archive of shows. So with this program, bringing it back on, podcast, Apple, all that good stuff. Hope to bring back a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new, and bring back some of the old interviews and things like that, because it's just, I don't want this stuff to be lost to time. This is a love letter to what was. So you have Chris and Tim taking over the helm here for the new Geek Time show. So Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself here.
Yeah, well, so yes, people might have seen me on some of Chris's stuff, and but the big reason why I think Chris wanted me to come on here is, and we've said this before, but we used to have some of the geekiest conversations. We would hang out together, and it was just a plethora of different topics, different genres, different things, and we'd always have different opinions, and at the same time, just kind of like a love for geek culture. But yeah, so.
We've got interviews. We got people lined up. We're going to be talking about video games, movies, TV, all that good stuff. But first, the first things that we like to do on Geek Time here is talking in a little segment called Geeking Out or Freaking Out. So yeah, in this part of the show, we talk about all the things that we're either geeking out on or freaking out on. And I have one for each of the sides of the coin there. So my geeking out, I ended up finding a podcast by Jim Cummings, the guy that does the voice of Tigger and Darkwing Duck. And so I guess he does a podcast now, and I'm geeking out over that because he has on other voice people in the industry, and they have they have some great conversations. One of the shows that I'm listening to now is they have the guy from Simpsons. I can't remember his name right now, but he does like the voice of Moe and Frink, and he just
Area?
Yeah, that's it. And it's funny because they'll be talking and he'll just slip into like a Frink or Moe or and Jim Cummings will slip into Tigger. So it's like Tigger talking to Moe, and it's kind of a cool podcast. One of the things
all those actors from The Simpsons, I feel like I've seen them in like talk shows and stuff, and they always slip into those characters. Like, is it Hank Shearer, the one who does like Principal Skinner? And Burns, and then
Harry Shearer,
of course, Dan Castellaneta, I'm butchering names.
Dan Castellaneta.
Yes, he always slip into like a Homer or a Grandpa, and like it's funny. I saw the two of them do like a talk show, and they just started doing Simpsons. Homer walks into Mr. Burns, and then like Grandpa shows up. Like it was just funny. But
see, I love that stuff, and I just there was another guy that I saw. It wasn't on that podcast, but he's got a Facebook channel. And every once in a while, he'll slip into a character. Like I can't remember all the characters he did, but the one that stands out, he did Cow and Chicken. And I can't remember his name, but if you're a fan of Cartoon Network, you just be like, oh yeah, I remember him because his voice is all over. All right, so let's jump into my freaking out. So McFarlane Toys ended up sending me a package. They're one of the sponsors for this program. You'll hear during the commercial segment. But they sent me a package of their Batman Forever toys. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. But I opened up the Batmobile and I was looking for the Alfred figure because I know it's supposed to become with the exclusive Alfred figure. But I didn't find it because I found out that, oh, wait a minute, there are two versions of this Batmobile, one that glows in the dark and one that doesn't. And the one that doesn't comes with Alfred. And I'm freaking out because I'm like, I wanted Alfred to complete my Batman Forever toys.
Is it Pat Hingle? Is it the Pat Hingle Alfred from Batman Forever, or
I think so?
Is it from the animated series? Because sometimes they do that where they will give you
no, it's the actual
animated series, not Danny DeVito, but
yeah, it's the actual actor from the movie. It looks just like him and everything. I'm like, so I'm like, I gotta send this Batmobile back and get the right one.
Okay, Pat Hingle was Commissioner Gordon, I think. Those two actors were in all four of them. I can't remember which one is which, but that actor from the original four Batman is what you're looking for. Yeah. Is it? Let me ask you this: is it the Batmobile from that movie? Because that's my favorite Batmobile.
It's the Schumacher Batmobile. That's what I call it. I love that Batmobile.
It's okay. I'm a super nerd about 89 Batman and anything from 89 Batman. Like that was when I was a kid, like it was one of the first movies I saw in theaters, and just like little Tim, just like, wow, watching it. So yeah,
I got it right here.
Okay.
You guys at home can't see it, but I just
brought up the Batmobile. A little bit like a cross between the two of them, but I always like the tank look of the Michael Keaton Batmobile, but Shark Fin's okay. I like it better than the Tumbler, but we're not going to get into Batmobile.
Well, let's hurry up, get to your geeking out, freaking out, because we've got a lot of news to cover.
My geeking out and freaking out thing is the same thing. Magic the Gathering released, did a partnership with Marvel, and it's a really big deal. It's going to span over the next few years. They're going to have a lot of extra new Marvel stuff. Well, their first thing they offered was what they call Secret Lair. You have to buy the cards online, and they had 5 different Secret Lair drops, one for Black Panther, Wolverine, Captain America, Iron Man, and Storm. And then they had brand new cards for those. Never done. I love Marvel. I love Magic. This is like peanut butter and jelly. This is my thing. Like, oh my God, I took the day off of work. I went and sat in front of my phone, my laptop. I was going to make sure that I got this drop coming in. And luckily, I was one of the lucky ones, because my freaking out is that this was the worst thing that they've ever had with Secret Lair thing.
No, God, please, no.
Crashed. That's first. Bots were able to get in and get the stuff early. I had many friends of mine that were not lucky enough to get stuff. I was fortunate that I bought some extra where I was able to get them stuff, but it was a freaking mess. And I don't mind if they did, because I don't mind if you do Secret Lairs with like the skins and stuff, but when you print new cards and you can only get them on this website, that's a little bad in my opinion. It makes it so I feel like they should not do it this way in the future. If you're going to make these brand new cards, find another way. And that's what's freaking me out about it. They need to change.
Oh, man. Sounds like they really dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot more money they could have made to do it, but they went the easy route and guaranteed, if they printed 100,000 of these, they all sold, so they made a lot of money. But, the same, they could have made more money probably by doing it print to demand or something.
Right. Well, it sounds like we got a lot of things to cover that more ball dropping in the industry. So let's get into a little news and notes here. All right, so the first thing I want to cover is the Minecraft movie trailer has just dropped. And man, I saw so many people online hating on this thing. Like, people just want to hate this thing just to hate it. I saw it. I don't know. I saw it and I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. Like, you don't realize, okay, when Tim and I were growing up, we had to deal with shit like the Super Mario Brothers movie that made no
I was gonna say that one.
Like, count your lucky stars, man. You're getting a live action.
What about He-Man? He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, where He-Man comes to Earth to save Courtney Cox's dead parents. Like,
oh God,
Major wow factor.
But yeah, so I saw the trailer. I was like, I'm willing to give it a chance. I know Minecraft's got a huge following. They wanted something computer animated because there's a lot of that online. But from what I saw, I think it might have some legs to stand on. And the director's standing behind it, saying, "I'll just give it a chance. It'll be good."
These kids don't know what it's like, man. What you just said is 100% true. They have it so good now. When you have things like Sonic movie, or when they have things like the new Super Mario Brothers movie that came out, where it's so accurate to a lot of things from the game. And you have, because at that time, you look back at like what Kevin Smith talked about back in when he was trying to make a Superman movie. Like, those movie directors in Hollywood wouldn't take like comic book writers seriously. Oh, those guys write comic books. They don't know anything about movies. And the same was for video games. Like, the trash that we had back then, like Double Dragon. Like, I could just name them all. Like, it's all bad.
Street Fighter, like, go on.
Yeah, but Jean-Claude Van Damme is Guile? What was that?
So that's a nice segue, too, because you mentioned Sonic 3, the movie, and I think the trailers for that are looking pretty darn good.
I'm not a fan of Sonic. I'll tell you that right now. I've never liked the games. I didn't own a Sega. I was a Nintendo guy. I was a Mario guy. I never bothered to see the movies, but people have told me these are really good movies for Sonic.
Yeah, they're pretty good. The live action stuff is kind of like, the live action people are kind of goofy. I think they're trying to phase them out as much as possible, and it looks like that's what's going on with this third movie. And one of the news things that I wanted to cover in this section was that, I don't know if you saw this, Tim, but they actually made a promo video game that works on the Sega Genesis. They made a cart and everything for this movie, and I guess you put it in the actual Sega, and like a screen will come up that says Sonic 3 the movie. They digitized a bunch of movie stills and there's little sprites that move around. It's pretty cool. Make sure
that's pretty cool. That's pretty
they
cool.
went all out for this, and I'm sure only maybe like 100 exist for media outlet people, the press people. So I would love to get my hands on that. So Paramount, if you're listening, I do want a copy of that. That thing looks awesome, and I will not flip it on eBay. I will keep that thing.
I would have to, because I don't have a Sega Genesis. So.
So another thing that's been going on too, I thought this was pretty interesting. There is a petition on now. If you look this up, there is a petition to have Peter Cullen as forever as the voice of Optimus Prime, and they want
Are they going to change James Earl Jones him? Are they going?
Yes, that is exactly what they want. This is similar to how Disney took James Earl Jones and kind of AI'd his voice and however you do that to be like forever the Darth Vader voice. People want Peter Cullen to be the same thing. I'm like, that's a pretty cool idea. I'm behind that. But I do have a caveat to that. I would love to see them do the same thing with Kevin Conroy for the animated Batman. I don't want to see any other people, voice actors doing Batman. I want Kevin Conroy. To me, that is, growing up in the 90s, that is like the definitive voice, I think.
I agree. Those are the definitive voices. Kevin Conroy as Batman, absolutely. You should probably do Mark Hamill as the Joker. He's the best.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect
but
voice.
Batman. You have to get these actors to sign on to it. And in the case of James Earl Jones admitted he loves Star Wars, and I mean, I'm sure he was okay with signing his voiceover to be Darth Vader forever. But then you also have people that can imitate those voices. And then the question becomes, are we taking work from actors who could do those voices? Like I think of back in the old days,
there is a gray area there. It's like, well, what is the proper...
Like somebody like a Maurice LaMarche who could do voices of actors famously. I mean, he was also like the Brain. I'm thinking the Brain and stuff like that too. But he was known for doing a lot of different. He could do a Jack Nicholson. He could do Danny DeVito. He could do all these different voices or whatever. So are we taking work away from actors who can imitate those voices? Then actually, just by doing essentially AI. And I know everybody say AI and everybody starts freaking out. So
I know. And here's the thing too. I don't know if you saw the new Indiana Jones. The first half hour.
No.
Okay. So I'll take over the conversation here. I thought the first half hour of the movie was incredible because what they did is they de-aged Harrison Ford. Okay. And it was like watching some lost Indiana Jones movie from the 1980s, 90s. It was incredible. But as soon as that ended, then everything started to go south. But that movie, if they made that 30 minutes into a full feature-length movie of a de-aged Harrison Ford, I would be so down with that. And I know it gets into that gray area.
Times the budget to do that though.
But if we have the technology to do it, I'm like, let's do it. I want some more. I want Indiana Jones to be a forever serial that just goes on and on. Because I can't see anybody else in that.
To be honest, something like an Indiana Jones serial. I mean, okay, I know that young Indiana Jones wasn't very good, but something like that where it was a show where you could do different serials each episode would be amazing to do that. But it'd probably cost too much money, especially to get the likeness of Harrison Ford and yada, yada, yada. But Marvel's been doing that. That was what was so impressive about the first Ant-Man, was the very first scenes of the first Ant-Man was like Michael Douglas looking like he just came off of Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Freaking being awesome like that instead of being the old decrepit guy he became. I'm no offense to Michael Douglas, but he looked like he just was still in the 80s at that point because they did the flashback.
Well, I wanted to cover two. So talking about Batman, I guess the next animated movies that they want to do is they want to do a multiple animated movies based on the Batman Nightfall plotline from 1992, I believe, which I was there. It's the storyline's kind of dated by this time, but I'm sure they'll update it a little bit. But
that was not Frank Miller, right? That's not Frank Miller, right?
I don't remember. I remember it was like a 19-part miniseries, and I remember I was like, I gotta get every single issue, but they just skyrocketed in price because DC was doing a big whole campaign, and comic books were just going crazy in price back then. But I can't wait for this. I hope it's done in a correct way. And here again, I would love to see an AI Kevin Conroy being the voice of Batman. So just wishful thinking, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so, all
fair.
right. One of the last things we'll hit up to is, I guess, Spider-Man 4. The rumors are rampant about who is going to appear in this. And some of the things that people have been speculating is that we're finally going to see Gwen Stacy join the universe, as well as Venom being the big bad, which...
Interesting. Well,
yeah,
they did kind of tell that in the post-credit scene for Spider-Man No Way Home, because Venom left a little blob of his stuff before he got sent back. So that's probably like how they're going to explain the alien symbiote coming over. Because again, like one of the many problems of Spider-Man 3 is, and I like Spider-Man 3, but one of the many problems of Spider-Man 3 is the meteor just happens to land. Of all the places a Venom meteor would land, it happens to land 5 feet from Spider-Man.
Right.
Okay, that's a little coincidental, but yeah, so they got to find a way to explain it. And I think that's probably like the smartest way you could. And it kind of ties in with the Venom movies, which Marvel's like, we don't really want to be associated, but we kind of have to be associated. And they play loosey-goosey with that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ant-Man earlier, so to take us out, we got the theme to Ant-Man. So when we return, we got more guests coming up for the video games segment.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Geek Time continues transmitting next with
8-Bit Eric and Bill Ratner.
All right, Tim. So one of the sponsors of the show is McFarlane Toys. They sent me a big case of Batman toys from Batman Forever. And this was a movie, I know it gets a lot of crap now, but back in the day, I enjoyed this movie. No, it wasn't Tim Burton, but it...
Better than Batman and Robin.
But I gotta say, McFarlane did an amazing job, as you'd come to expect with McFarlane. The sculpts are amazing with Batman, Robin, Riddler, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face.
And Tommy Lee Jones was there.
Yes. And of course, like I said, they sent me the wrong Batmobile. I did not want the glow-in-the-dark one. I wanted the one that came with Alfred. So there's like an exclusive figure there. There's a Build-A-Figure of the Man-Bat equivalent of that bat that flies in the dream sequence.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. I put that thing together, and I'm just having a great time, especially with the Schumacher Batmobile. I got the wrong one, but it's still incredible. It's
probably my second favorite Batmobile, too.
I went back and watched that movie. The Batmobile only got like 1 minute of screen time, which is a shame because can you imagine how long it took to make that Batmobile? I would be mad if I was the sculptor.
That's ridiculous. I think that Batmobile has actually lasted the test of time. What was it? The Arthur movie with Russell Brand? The beginning of the movie, he starts with him stolen the Batmobile or whatever. And I think
I didn't see that. That's funny.
Schumacher Batmobile. I think it's that Batmobile.
Oh, so cool. Okay.
I feel like that Batmobile is iconic, and it is definitely one that would be awesome with your collection.
Yeah, so if you're interested in the McFarlane toys, make sure you go to the website. They've got a store there, or you can check out for them on Amazon. You can find them at Targets and Walmarts.
Hi, this is Stan Lee, and you're listening to Geek Time. Nuff said.
All right, we are back, Geek Heads, and that is the actual Stan Lee. That is not AI or anything. But yeah, so we're entering the video game segment now, and we have a special guest.
Geek Time welcomes a man stuck within a pixelated existence. Part video game sprite, part man. He is 8-Bit Eric.
8-Bit Eric, welcome to the Geek Time show.
I like that. The movie trailer voice announcement. I like that.
I tried to make it as humorous as possible for you.
I'm stuck in a pixelated world. Or what was it? The Pixel Demon that you used to have on your show?
Yes, the Pixelated Demon jumping out of the TV screen. But so I wanted you on because it seems like you are very embroiled with what's going on in Twitter space, or is it X space now, whatever you call it.
Blue Sky Space.
But there's a whole controversy going around now with all the video game magazines, with the online video magazines. And I've had my own run-ins with them, of course, my fans know. But yes, I wanted to get it from you because you are getting all kinds of stuff from like one of the heads that stepped down. So give us like a 5-minute elevator pitch of what's been going on for the viewers that don't know, and go from there.
So basically, it's a war of, I guess I would call access media against new media, which is influencers, podcast, independent, basically what we are, that you're able to do it from home. You're able to do your own research, produce your own stuff. It's essentially, Gamergate a decade later, where you have access media that have privilege and benefits and quid pro quo type of things. And then when it looks like they're in danger, because let's be honest, a lot of them don't do their job. They get intimidated by people that step in and criticize and give their own different opinion.
So specifically, and if you don't want to call these people out, that's fine. But specifically, so like Kotaku and IGN, GameSpot, like places like that.
Yeah, most of I guess they would be called, not necessarily legacy media. When I think legacy media, I think like CNN and MSNBC and stuff like that. But basically, the legacy media of the internet. So definitely IGN, Kotaku, Polygon, you name it. To be honest, it all started because it's kind of like a weird rabbit hole, but there's consulting companies that are out there that are, I guess, sensitivity, consulting, diversity, DEI companies that work for video game developers, and they inject a lot of, I guess, what you would call, or what people would call woke material into video games. Somebody made a curator list on Steam. The main company is called Sweet Baby. So somebody made a list called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected. So where people can click it and see which games have that company's influence involved with them.
Oh, interesting.
So all these people on the internet that are gaming journalists suddenly started writing hit pieces on that individual that made that Steam group. And then they tried to get that guy banned off of Steam. So essentially it kicked off this whole culture war of, gamers versus journalists. No, yeah, it's a mess because and I don't want to like get too far into like what they do, but they've done some stuff like shut down. Like one of my friends has his own independent blog website, and he was making articles criticizing some of these individuals, and they temporarily shut his whole entire website down.
Wow.
Because he was writing articles about
dick.
Writing articles about their behavior, and they contacted his wife. They contacted former employers. They've done a lot of things. Just recently, I've gotten my own thing where they've tried to threaten legal action against me and things like that as well. So it's pretty wild how I wouldn't say deranged, but how defensive these people get over people being able to criticize them, because they're all public figures. The same difference that any of us could get criticized for anything that we post or do or say.
Yeah, and I've seen you point these things out to the people that are doing it, and there's the backlash is so tremendous, because now they're trying to get you banned. They're like, I'm going to my YouTube people and getting 8-Bit Eric shut down, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, I had a good little a night where I was like, oh, it's Thanksgiving weekend, I'll go on stream, and I was a little couple of beers, and Alyssa Mercante decided to come to my stream in my chat and started insulting me and saying disparaging stuff. So I just kind of went wrestler mode with her and started, like how Ric Flair starts becoming a little bit chauvinistic and stuff like that. And, she wasn't too happy, and everybody was roasting her. So next thing you know, she's contacting YouTube, and I get a couple of videos removed, and all over video games.
It doesn't matter what you think.
I had to throw that drop in there.
And that goes into other things too. Like the big topic is Veilguard has been one. I know you mentioned that. We were talking about that off in the side, that games like Veilguard, games like Concord, Dustborn. The next one coming out is Avowed. It's by Obsidian. A lot of these people, you'll see these developers will post like tweets essentially hating gamers, talking about how like the art director for Avowed that's coming out just got exposed for hating Elon Musk. Like he admitted that he was making this game just to piss Elon Musk off. basically said, because there's a character creator where there's pronouns in it, like gender pronouns, and Elon Musk put this doesn't belong in a fantasy setting of a video game, and this guy lost his cool. So it's like, okay, you wanted to spite him, so then when he does say something about it, you act like you're the offended one.
You know, it sounds like the Brie Larson effect, where she comes in as Captain America or Captain Marvel, and you sit there and put down the very fans that you want to watch the movie. It's like, you don't do that. No, you don't piss in your cornflakes.
Yeah, so this guy, this art director for Avowed, went on this deranged rant how there's too many old, crusty white guys in the industry and that they need to be booted out, essentially. And see, what happens now is people are going after Elon when they don't realize he owns and operates like the biggest real-time interaction, faster than the news at times, services out there. So Elon basically posted the screenshot of him saying he makes sure not to hire. This guy said he makes sure not to hire white people during their hiring process. So Elon says, interesting. We got a video game company that's purposely having discrimination policies when they hire. So now Microsoft owns Obsidian. So now people are going after Microsoft to canvas food and restructure the, it's like that. These guys don't see any of that.
Yeah,
It's a trap.
There's so much rabbit hole here. We could be like for 4 hours.
No, I know there's a lot of controversy too about the Dragon Age. Is that why as well?
Yeah, pretty much. There's people that were involved with that development studio as well. BioWare that are just they're purposely, instead of making great games for the consumer, they're more worried about sticking it to grifters or whatever term that they use right there. And where journalists come in is that they're hand in hand with these guys. They're all buddies. They're all Access Media that they gather around at these events and press conferences and journalist events. And, if you say nice things about me, I'll do good coverage for you. And
yeah, it's interesting. I had run-ins with all these guys when I used to go to E3, and the people that work at these magazines, boy, there's like an air of arrogance among all these people. Like, you go up and because I'm a very talkative person when I go to these events. I'm like, hey, how you doing? You having a nice time at this event and things like that. And they kind of thumb your nose at you, and they're just, they look at you like, I'm more important than you. I'm not talking to you. And of course, you look at their badge. It's from, he's from IGN or GameStop or not GameStop, GameSpot. And it's all these big companies. And it's like, wow, dude, they're more. Their ego, it needs to be in check or something.
Yeah, so, because what it is they see them as Access Media. They got the access, and we don't. You know what I mean? They're the special ones. They're above us. And I forgot who it was just recently. They were fighting with a whole bunch of other like YouTube content creators. No, it's Stuttering Craig. So he has an event coming up called the Real Game Awards, which he actually closed to Access Media. Because there's the Game Awards that are about to come out like in a week or two. The Game Awards itself, that's held by Jeff Keighley, 90% of the vote for any of the awards is Access Media. It's Polygon, IGN, Variety. Variety ain't even a gaming media outlet. Why do they have voting power? Only the fan vote only gets 10% of what the Game Awards is. So there was a whole argument on Twitter, and essentially what it came down to is one of the guys that works for one of the magazines, I think maybe The Verge, or I'm freestyling off the top of my head because there's always something every day. Basically what it came down to, this guy said that we don't matter because we don't have Access Media, that we're not really in the industry, that we're just people with cameras and microphones that are giving baseless opinions, and that's how they all think. To the point where Jeff Keighley was actually trying to trademark the term Game Awards recently. So he sent emails out to everybody that's ever voted for the Game Awards to write, I guess, endorsement letters about how much the Game Awards mean to them. And if you look at the nominees, they specifically switched the credentials to be a nominee for Game of the Year so Elden Ring could be in it again. They switched it to where DLC could be nominated for Game of the Year. When does that ever happen? So that it's obvious Elden Ring DLC, what was it called? Yeah. Shadow of the Earth Tree or something like that. They probably that studio probably has money funneled into the event. This is speculation, by the way. Don't sue me.
Oh, it's probably true because all these companies are embedded with each other. That's why
Do you know
TV
which
is
DLCs
crap
got
right now.
nominated?
Yeah, it was the Elden Ring one that just came out this year. So not only did Elden Ring have a nomination in 2022, now it all of a sudden has another one for a DLC. Meanwhile, there's other games out there that got snubbed, like when Hogwarts Legacy came out, it didn't even get a fan nomination because it didn't fit the agenda. It was J.K. Rowling who goes against the woke journalist and the woke game developers. You know what I mean? And there's an obvious bias with the Game Awards show. It's like the Oscars, essentially. You're in the club,
right? You don't get the vote unless you're in the club. So what are your predictions for the big games for this holiday season, you think?
It's so weird because right now we're in December and there's not like a big release. All the releases that came out already came out. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on bringing people back in. Star Wars Outlaws was supposed to be a huge hit and that flopped. Assassin's Creed Shadows was supposed to come out 2 weeks ago. That got delayed to February. There's no way. The powers that be are going to try to push like Veilguard, which flopped immensely because of all the wokeness in it. Honestly, off the top of my head, I think people are going to go to the games that are going to be expanded on, that have hits. As far as the Game Awards show, maybe just whatever's nominated for the Game Awards.
Well, what about that new Mario one? I know they're pushing that a lot, or it might not be that new.
Well, what's funny is with because there was a Mario and Luigi Brothership game that just came out. IGN gave that a 5.
That's the one I know about.
IGN gave that game a 5, but they gave Veilguard a 9.
Wow, really? In what world does that happen?
And then they also gave Concord like a 7 or an 8, and Concord closed down 2 weeks after its launch because nobody was playing it. It was a live service game, and Sony closed it down, but that was rated better than a Mario game. Like, make it make sense.
All right, well, I guess we'll end on that note, but I know you're deeply embroiled on the Twitter front, so stay safe out there, Eric.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. I've always been a pretty big fan, and I know all the combo today was jumbled everywhere, so hopefully, anytime you ever want me back on, always willing to come on and talk some more if we have a little bit more time.
Oh, you got it. Absolutely. And thanks for appearing. And then, that does it for the video game segment. So stay tuned, folks. More to come.
Warning. Geek Time will return after these messages.
All right, so if you're a fan of cell animation art, there's a new company called Naftos, Naftos, that's making these really cool limited prints they're called Pop Art Animation Cell. They sent me one of Batman, the animated series, and I gotta say it's great because you just don't get the animation cell of the one I have is of Batman from the animated series, but they actually take a background and frame it and mount it, and it looks amazing. So I don't know if you've ever been to like a Comic-Con, but I know there's sellers there that have booths totally dedicated to animation cells, and I just love flipping through it. I'll find like Ren and Stimpy, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool, or Huckleberry Hound or something. I'm like, oh, I remember these guys. But
have you ever been to like San Diego Comic-Con or any of the major Comic-Cons?
No, nothing that big.
Yeah, but they used to have artists come to the Magic conventions and stuff, and they'd always have their works and their proofs and everything. From some of the art from the Magic cards was always sweet, and you could buy that and stuff too. So they had some of the cells and stuff they did. It's always cool. Art to me is it's really interesting. The market for art, people pay big dollars for some art. And stuff.
Oh my gosh, yes. And these are limited edition. They've come with a certificate of authenticity, of course. Yeah, look them up. They've got all kinds of interesting prints that range from the entire Warner Brothers library. I saw Jetsons, Flintstones, and Scooby-Doo, and a host of others.
Okay.
If you want to get your own animation cell, visit naftos.com.
In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light. This is John Stewart, Green Lantern, Sector 2814, and you're listening to Geek Time.
All right, and that is the great Phil Lamar doing the voice of John Stewart. I love me some Green Lantern. I wish they would have not screwed up that movie a few years ago with Ryan Reynolds. But yeah, Phil
so bad that they won't even do another take. They won't even do another try.
I heard they're going to try with under the James Gunn leadership, but
bring him into the Justice League. Like they were that scared by it.
I know.
Bad. It
drives me nuts because I love Green Lantern, especially when they did the whole Darkest Night storyline. Still fantastic. I love it. Well, anyway, Phil Lamar, thank you for that. And talking about voiceover people. Next up, we're going to be talking to Bill Ratner. Now, he is the voice from G.I. Joe. He played Flint. And before we get to his interview here, I have to tell you how I met or my first encounter with Bill. So we were at this convention together called Retropalooza. And it was funny because when I was getting picked up from the airport by the people that hosted the event, it was funny because I was in the car and they're like, yeah, we got to pick up 2 more people. And I was just like, oh, great. Who are we going to pick up? Because you never know. It's always a crapshoot. So we pull up to another gate at the airport, and it's an older gentleman there. And I was like, oh man, is that one of the voiceover guys? Because they had a bunch of voiceover guys there. So he gets in the car. And I was like, did you do one of the voices for G.I. Joe? And he slips into Flint. And this is like my childhood. So he jumps into the voice of Flint. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So I was just blown away. We had a great conversation in the car. And I was like, I have to interview you later. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Come by and we'll get this on tape. And this is a great interview. He talks about his encounter that he had with Casey Kasem, which is very interesting. So without further ado.
And now, Geek Time welcomes a man that is an all-American hero. He educated us, not giving strangers our address, and that smoking is bad, because knowing is half the battle. He is the voice of the iconic soldier Flint, G.I. Joe's Bill Ratner.
All right, I'm here with Bill Ratner. You may know this voice if you grew up in the 1980s as Flint from G.I. Joe. I am so excited because I actually did an Irate Gamer episode where I parodied one of the, what do you call them? The vignettes.
Oh, the public service.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the story. At one of the recording sessions of G.I. Joe, a producer type, older guy comes up to me, slams about 13 pieces of copy on the stand and says, read these for me, would you? I said, well, what are they? Because it wasn't the show script. It wasn't the dialogue. It said public service announcement. I said, well, what are they? He said, don't worry, you're not going to be paid any extra. And what they were was public service announcements because parent groups, local PTA groups, had threatened the TV stations that were airing G.I. Joe. We're going to boycott all your sponsors. We don't want war cartoons for our children. And so Hasbro said, what do we do? What do we do? So they created these PSAs where it's a cartoon of Bobby throwing a baseball at Sally's window next door and breaking it. And Flint drives up in a Jeep and says, hey, Bobby, don't throw baseballs at Sally's window. You could break it, and you might hurt somebody. Now you know. And knowing's half the battle. And some of my favorite YouTube productions, besides yours, Chris, are 12-year-olds who get a hold of the video, right? Who download the video from YouTube and then dub it. Don't look at Sally, Bobby. Don't look at her that way because she might slap you across the face, you dirty little rat. And now you know, and knowing's half the battle.
Yeah, so I did an Irate Gamer episode where I was about to curse, like say a bad word. And I had Flint come in. I had a cartoon version of Flint come in and put a piece of tape over my mouth. And he was just like, nope, cursing is not I can't remember the exact words I said, but
stop cursing, Chris. You might offend someone.
Something along that lines. But I have to say, your voice for Flint is like a voice of a generation, from my standpoint. Like, there are certain voices I hear from my childhood where I'm like, oh, that is my childhood. And yours is just one of those voices. Like, what do you feel about people that have that kind of reaction to your voice?
The only experience I had, which was really the other side of the coin, of me relating to cartoon voices, was about 25 years ago. I was staying in an old historic hotel in Southern California on the beach near San Clemente. And my girlfriend was cleaning out the room, and I had already checked out. And I was in the bookstore, and it said, for $2.50, you can listen to the history of the blah, blah, blah hotel, where they had filmed a Peter O'Toole movie called Stuntman. And so I rented a little tape recorder and put the headphones on and walked literally out into the beach because it was on the Pacific Ocean. And it was the voice of the great Warner Brothers character actor Hans Conried, who played Boris Badenov.
Yeah.
And all kinds of characters in Crusader Rabbit.
Bacon Brass, all those.
Yeah. All the TV cartoons I watched when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And I heard his voice, San blah, blah, blah hotel. It's blah, blah, blah. I went, it's Boris Badenov. That's Hans Conried. And I literally started crying. And it brought up all these deeply emotional memories of childhood and how important the voice of Hans Conried was to me. He was not a relative. He was not a friend. Nobody knew him. I'd probably seen him as playing a bartender in one episode of Gunsmoke. And so it was then that I really came to understand the meaning of cartoon voices to kids.
So you probably have a place in your heart for a lot of the voice actors that came before you, like Mel Blanc.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Scott.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to meet anyone of them?
Yes. The great June Foray.
Oh, wow.
Who I believe, did she play Crusader Rabbit? No, that was somebody else. But June Foray, the late great June Foray played Foray, played a thousand voices, made her living. Yes.
Witch Hazel.
You know more than I do. Chris, you got it, man.
Hey, this is my stuff, man.
Yeah.
This is my jam.
And I had heard of her. I'd never worked with her, and I was booked on a radio commercial, and I got there first. And then I heard this voice coming in the studio, hi, hello. And I thought, my God, I'm working with a 19-year-old woman. And I turned around, and it was 70-year-old June Foray wearing a little cranberry suit, matching skirt and purse, with the voice of a 19-year-old girl. I mean, I was just amazed. And she came in and introduced herself. It was very sweet and kind. And I was just stunned that somehow or other, the 70-year-old woman was able to sound whatever age and whatever character and whatever type she wanted to be. When I auditioned for Flint, I was standing in line with literally about 85 other actors. Older guys I recognized from shows like Gunsmoke and The Virginian. And, a bunch of contemporaries of mine, Mary Mack, and the people who are here, today, Morgan Lofting, and Neil Ross, and Brian Cummings, all standing in line outside while they were recording in Burbank. A beautiful day in Southern California near Universal Studios. And one by one, they called us in. They went down the line and handed us drawings of the character that they wanted us to audition for. Mine was called Flint. And it was kind of a crude, hand-drawn, black and white Xerox of this guy with a black beret and big pectoral muscles. And so I got in and read the line. It was like 25 words. And I learned maybe 2 weeks later, you got the job as Flint on G.I. Joe. They aired 6 episodes and the stations wanted more. It did well. I realized this is a big deal. And then kids on the street would say, I recognize your voice. Are you Flint? And it became one of the most fun things in the world. The sessions were great. About every week or 2 weeks, we do an episode. 6 of us standing in 6 different microphones, making jokes, doing dialogue. It was like, running away with the circus.
Now, you started as a radio guy, correct?
Yeah, actually I started as a theater actor and then a radio guy. Yeah.
Okay, well, it seemed like around that time, like the early 80s, they were trying to get a lot of radio people as some of the voices for the cartoons, because Casey Kasem, was one of the people. Do you think that was like a prerequisite for?
I don't think it was. In fact, it was in a way it was the opposite.
Okay.
I got a very weird call from my agent one time who said, "Stop telling producers that you're a radio announcer." I said, "What are you talking about? You bragged," she said. "You bragged to your employer today at that freelance radio commercial that you were on FM 104.3 in LA." And I said, "Yeah, I'm proud of it. Just don't do that. They're sick of announcers because most announcers sound just like that." And the common direction from directors in everything from TV cartoons to radio commercials was, don't sound so announcery. And speaking of Casey Kasem, I met him at a seminar. There were about 250 people. I happened to be sitting right next to him by accident.
Huh.
And he was doing everything. He was doing NBC, Continental Airlines, cartoons.
He had quite the resume around that time.
America's Top 40. I mean, everything in the world. One of the most successful voiceover guys in the world at the time. And I was a wannabe taking voiceover classes. But we knew somebody in common. I knew that, a guy named Irv Immerman, who worked with him in Detroit. So during a break, and we were just sort of sitting there, before he got up to go and have a smoke or go to the can or whatever, I said, "Excuse me, Casey, I think you and I know somebody in common." And I mentioned the guy's name. He goes, "Oh, Irv, yeah, how is you know Irv?" And we had this sort of nice chat for 2 minutes. And then I said, "So, Casey, I'm a fledgling voiceover guy, and I hear you all the time, and any words of advice you could give me?" And I quote, he said, "Yeah, it's funny. Here I am with a funny little voice like mine, and grew up behind my parents' grocery store in Detroit City. And I'm doing everything. Guys with voices like you aren't doing squat." And he got up and walked away. And I sat there thinking, ladies and gentlemen, the great Casey Kasem. And part of me thought, what a jerk. And the other part of me thought, with guys with voices like me, you meaning more traditional radio announcer voices. And what he was saying was absolutely true at the time. In the late 70s and 80s, television and radio producers looking to hire voices were less interested in the traditional deep-voiced male macho announcer. And they were more interested in either actors or people with a little grit or a little gravel to their voice, like Casey Kasem.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I was going to have to do something, not to get rid of that voice, because I was still working in radio and happy with my voice, but that I was going to have to do more. So I started taking more voiceover classes to try to do, some variety, to get away so everything didn't sound like this. And my theory about voiceovers is that all voiceover actors have a default voice. There was a guy who appeared on the original Beverly Hills 90210, wonderful actor, who said, "What about this voiceover thing?" I said, "Just come over, man. It's a friend." And he got in my booth and he read a piece of copy, and he read it very much like this, like it was 1915 in the Titanic. And I said, "Wait, why are you reading that way?" He said, "Like what?" I said, "You sound like it's 1915 and you're on the Titanic." He said, "You not?" I said, "Listen to it." And I played it back. And he had this very flat, pleasant Ohio, Midwestern accent. I said, "Geez, where did that voice come from?" I said, "That's your default voice. That's the voice that your subconscious is producing for you when you get on mic." So I've worked on it. I was in a Mexicana Airlines commercial, and the woman was directing me, and she was obviously not happy with my route. And she just sort of like looking down and said, "Do it again." And finally she said, "A few minutes ago before we started, we were talking about the weather." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do it like that." And I said, "We were just conversing." She said, "Yeah, read it like that. So instead of reading Mexicana Airlines can send you all the way," I said, "Mexicana Airlines could send you all the way to Mexico." She said, "That's it. That's the voice." And that was one of the first times that I really got it, that to sell something in a radio or TV commercial, or to be a character in a TV cartoon or a game, you don't have to talk like this.
Yeah, because everybody seemed to have the affect to their voice at a certain point back then.
Yeah.
Now, do you have like any favorite memories that stand out when you're doing the cartoon that you can elaborate on?
Yeah, one of my favorite memories from a session in G.I. Joe, the guy who played Duke, Michael Bell, who's a good guy, and a brilliant voice actor and coach, was very busy at the time. He was on a number of cartoon series, so he had a busy day and needed to get going. But Wally Burr, the G.I. Joe director, had us there for half days. The Hanna-Barbera and the Warner Brothers cartoon sessions were like an hour and a half. We were there for 4.5, 5 hours because he wanted to get realistic acting out of us, and he kept having a lot of takes. And at one point, Michael, playing Duke, got exasperated and said, "Wally, I'm on 10 different shows. I've got to get out of here. I got more work to do this afternoon." And Wally said, "All right, fine, Michael. Let Michael read his lines. Go ahead. And somebody, I don't know if it was Chris Latta, who played Cobra Commander. I don't know who it was. I don't remember. And if I did, I might not say his name. Took a Zippo lighter, walked up behind Michael Bell, and lit a script on fire.
Wow.
And Duke is going, what the hell is going on? And Wally Bird's going, "What's going on?" Pressing the button. "What's going on in there? There's smoke in there. Nobody lights stuff on fire."
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, thank you. We'll wrap this up. It got a little long here, but
well, thank you, Chris.
So thanks, Bill. I appreciate it.
Irate Games, ladies and gentlemen. Irate Games.
Adjusting audio playback.
We'll be right back.
All right, so for all you retro video game fans out there, there is a new arcade machine out called the Evercade. That's a bar top arcade machine. This one, what makes it unique is it has different cartridges that you can stick in the bottom, so you don't have to play the same ones like Pac-Man or Burger Time. If you get bored with it, like with the like you buy the arcade 1-up machines, you're stuck with those games. But with the Evercade, you can take the cartridge out, put a different one in, and play a whole new set of games. And it's got a marquee that lights up. It's amazing. I was playing around with this. I'm like, oh, this is so neat with all the bells and whistles.
Can you eat dinner on it?
Yes, you can, but I wouldn't suggest
I feel like I'm
that.
an old school pizzeria.
One of the cool things about this machine is that they have different artwork machines that you can pick up, and they sent me the one that has Mega Man all over it, because I guess there are some Mega Man arcade games, which are kind of like brawlers. It's kind of like Street Fighter, but with Mega Man characters. And then, of course, when you get bored with that, take it out, put in Burger Time, and boy, I love me some Burger Time.
Burger Time. Do they actually have Burger Time?
I know.
Tell me they have Burger Time.
There's not going to be a Geek Time episode that goes by that I don't mention Burger Time. Let's do this.
Love Burger Time, man.
So, all right, check out Evercade. They're in places like Best Buys, Amazons. So get yours today.
This is Bill Ratner, the voice of Flint from G.I. Joe, All-American Hero. You're listening to Geek Time.
Thanks, Bill. I can't believe he cut that intro for me. I was just like, thank you so much, Bill. So, what a great interview that was. And I got goosebumps going back to listen to that. So our next segment features is tabletop gaming with Tim. So take it away, Tim.
Yeah, so everybody here who's watched this before knows I'm a big Magic the Gathering player. It's like my thing for it there. And the big thing right now, I kind of mentioned it earlier, was a big deal at Marvel is now combining with Magic the Gathering, because I'm a huge fan growing up. Marvel Comics, X-Men, the X-Men cartoon series, of course, Spider-Man cartoon series, the movies, and then of course the MCU and everything too. But Magic the Gathering for the last 15, 20 years has been my major hobby. And having these two come together is huge.
Yeah, because they're bringing on a lot of IPs over the years.
Yes. And that's the thing, is that now, like, there's been a lot of criticism about, IPs coming into Magic the Gathering.
Resistance
This year
is futile.
Correct. This year coming up, we're going to have Final Fantasy and Spider-Man. They're going to have entire big sets of Spider-Man and
oh my gosh,
Final Fantasy. They
Merging of Worlds.
The game now is just full of different IPs, and many people say it's the Fortnite-ification of Magic the Gathering. That it's basically Super Smash Brothers. That now we're just playing all these different things. Like my Inigo Montoya shows up in my Aragorn deck, and Ghostbusters, helps out with with my Sam and Frodo. Like
Wonder Twin powers activate.
I wanted to just say that I'm a big Magic fan. I have a lot of friends that are big Magic players. Some of them don't like this. They don't like this coming into Magic the Gathering. And think about whatever hobby that you're into. And then all of a sudden, different, IPs kind of come into it. But Magic is different in this sense because I mentioned there's the Disney Lorcana is the trading card game that in the last couple of years has started to become popular. And
is it? Because I haven't been checking up on that, so it's starting to get a following, huh?
Yeah, one of the big things is that during COVID, it was more casual instead of the tournament going to Friday Night Magic and playing in a tournament. So a lot of those players end up going to Lorcana, and that especially from players that I've seen. And I'll go back to Pokemon for a second, where Pokemon players, they collect all the cards because their IP is something that's exciting. It's something that they want to buy the cards just to collect them. When you look at expensive cards like a Jerry Rice rookie card, from sports and stuff like that, or Tom Brady rookie card, people, have affection for that player and they want to collect it. They want to put it in a binder. They want to slab it on the wall and they want to basically have, this is my guy. There's nothing like that in Magic the Gathering. Like, people don't care about the storyline. They don't care about a lot of the Magic players. They had Gideon show up on Hot Pockets at Walmart. Nobody cared. Man. Like, nobody cares about
subverted expectation.
Yes. But I'm going to say it right now. I love Magic the Gathering, but the IP sucks. No one cares about Liliana's contract with demons or Eldrazi showing up and getting blasted by Chandra. No one cares. So now you're bringing.
I mean, it was fun back in the day, but I think we're past.
The storylines that Magic the Gathering has always done have always felt like watered down versions of other things that exist. War of the Spark was just Avengers Endgame light. Now with Marvel coming in, you could actually do Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, you actually have it.
Look, and the other thing too is that even though there is a big argument of people who don't like this, the truth of the matter is that those sets, Lord of the Rings was one of its biggest, I think it was its biggest selling set of all time. Final Fantasy is going to sell huge. I've already heard people talk about they're learning how to play Magic the Gathering. So when Final Fantasy comes out, they'll be able to play with those characters.
Well, that's the
thing.
Sets the tone.
We can complain about some of the IPs that were chosen. A lot of people hated the first big Universes Beyond push was Walking Dead and Godzilla. And those brands are not necessarily as beloved as something like a Marvel or Lord of the Rings or Final Fantasy. If they would have came out swinging at the gate with one of those, I don't think you'd hear anybody complaining about those IPs.
So when you say Final Fantasy, what are they bringing in? Like Cloud and Sephiroth and...
The answer is yes. From what they've said, it's basically going to be all the games. They're going to have characters, and in the Spider-Man set, it's going to be like Spider-Man's history. So you'll probably see like Sinister Six and Venom will show up probably. They might have who knows? They could have a Carnage freaking Commander deck with all of his clones or what? Not clones. What were they? The Maximum Carnage thing. Like they can do all that stuff. What are your thoughts on it, Chris? What are your thoughts about Universes Beyond coming?
I think I like it if it makes sense because I saw they're bringing in SpongeBob. Like, are people really being like, "Hey, I got to bring Squidward and his magical flute into my arsenal"? How many people are?
That's the Walking Dead thing, where people don't like that IP, but you can't be exclusive to some IPs if those things come in. And look, I'd be okay. I'm okay with SpongeBob coming in. Now they haven't even announced if it's going to be skins or if it's going to be brand new only cards, but
because I know they brought in My Little Pony a while ago, and I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!"
those were silver bordered, which I would be fine with playing with them.
I guess a better answer would be like if I could see it joining the Dungeons and Dragons universe. I would be fine with it because I remember Skylanders. I was a big fan of the Skylanders game because when it first came out, all the characters were dungeon crawler based. And then once it got mainstream, they started bringing all these like fluffy characters and things like that. I'm like, I wanted them to get back to the gritty.
The Magic the Gathering IP has done exactly what you just said. This year, they're going to also have a space opera set, or like a Star Wars kind of thing. You know, they're going to have a Fast and the Furious kind of like cars.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Friday the 13th franchise going into space for their. Okay, how we're getting to the milking the franchise stage.
Yes, but that was fun, and you know what? I will argue for Jason.
We don't have time for that now.
Leprechaun went into space too, Chris. I mean, my best thing to say is get over it, because it's making them a lot of money and it's a lot of fun. Be a kid again. When you had your wrestling toys and your Transformers toys, and they go and they fight each other, that's fun.
All right, so we don't have much time left, so let's get to the TV segment here. All right, and there's a lot of stuff coming at us lately in the geekdom world with TV. One of the first things I wanted to cover is that I saw a trailer for, I guess Amazon Prime is getting a new Mega Man animated movie. It kind of looks like a Mega Man meets Pixar. It looks kind of neat, but I don't want to jump the gun because it could go horribly wrong. Mega Man is one of those properties where if you don't do it right, it's going to suck. I also caught the trailer of Star Wars: The Skeleton Crew.
I saw the trailer too.
Let me hear your take first, Tim, and then I'll give my thoughts.
It's not fair, because every time that I have said negative on a Star Wars show, people end up loving it. Okay, I was kind of talking crap about Mandalorian when it first came out. I'm like, oh God, a show about like
I remember that.
Whatever, and then it's like the biggest thing. I did not predict Baby Yoda. Apparently, it was my mistake. I also talked crap on Andor because I hated his character in Rogue One.
I couldn't watch that actually. I got
friends of mine that loved it. So
I watched the first 2 episodes. It was good, but it's just long in the tooth.
I know friends of mine that loved it. So I looked at the Skeleton Crew here, and I'm like, oh, this is like Star Wars Goonies, and I'm like, roll my eyes, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's probably gonna be good.
Well, when I first watched the trailer, I kind of got vibes for the first trailer I saw was like a 30-second trailer, that teaser thing. And I kind of got vibes of like Caravan of Courage like vibes from it. I'm like, going after the kids is probably the smartest thing that the Star Wars IP could do at this point.
As long as they don't kill the parents. Don't kill the parents.
But I saw the extended trailer, and it's kind of reminiscent of like one of those 1980s kids movies like The Explorers or The Flight of the Navigator, if you remember those. Goonies. Yes. So I got those kind of vibes for them. The only downside that I see is that it's 8 episodes long. And when it comes to Star Wars, they put a lot of padding in their TV shows that I'm just like, oh, this could have been just done in a 2-hour movie. So I think if anything,
they do that. I've heard something about they do that because the reviews, and because Ms. Marvel was like that too, where there was tons of padding with Ms. Marvel. It's like the first couple episodes are like, they know that people are going to watch, and then they're going to do their review before they finish the dang show. And so they pad the middle of it just so they can guarantee, like, I guess, the viewership. Or is this all going to drop at once, or are they going to do it weekly? Because a lot of those, they do the padding because they want to do it weekly to keep you coming back, to extend out. So if you buy for a month, you have to actually buy 2 months of a subscription, or 3 months maybe, depending.
I'm not a fan of the padding. I want a capsulated thing. Enough of the fluff. All right, so now let's get to the Geekend Planner. If you're looking for things to watch this weekend, the movie scene, we have Moana 2. I know that's a big movie that's coming out. I'm kind of interested to see that, having girls myself. And then one series that I'm really interested in that I've watched the first couple episodes, I just can't stop watching, is the Mr. McMahon Netflix series. Everything you wanted to know about the Attitude Era. It is jam-packed in there, and it is done in such an incredible way. I'm on episode 4, and I can't wait to see the next one. Another show that's interesting, if you like Star Trek, Star Trek Lower Decks is back for their 5th season. I really enjoyed that show. They include a lot of deep-cut jokes from all the 1990s Star Trek series, which I am all about. And then another show that I'm interested in is that I've been watching is called Dark Side of Reality TV. If you watch one episode of that, make sure you watch the whole Chef Ramsay Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen.
That's it. They go behind the scenes and they bring back old contestants and talk about, I don't know how they do it because I know they have to sign like NDAs. So I don't know how they skirt around that, but they talk about some inside stuff that's happened on those shows.
I'm curious. I might check that out because I know that the original winner of Hell's Kitchen was like homeless for a period of time. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, that's one of the guys they brought back.
Okay.
And he was on opioids and everything else. I'm like, wow, I never knew. And then another thing, I guess I'm just a sucker for Beatles documentaries, and Disney Plus has a new documentary called Beatles 64, which I'm going to be watching this weekend. So all that stuff is dropping. Anything that you want to add there, Tim?
Yeah, Amazon Prime. I was excited about this because I was watching a football game a few weeks ago, and they advertised this, and it came out this week on Thanksgiving week. It's called "It's in the Game." It's a documentary on the Madden football game, and it's a 4-part thing. They dropped it all at once. Thank you for doing that. I didn't have to wait a week to get every episode.
Tim has to have his fix.
Why? Why do it? We're in a world of binge watching. This is what we do. But all 4 episodes. I will say this: it is 4 episodes, and they talk about the creation of Madden, and then they talk about the current, like how I'm trying to win the fans back because, as everybody knows, Madden is notorious for being criticized for being the same game over and over again. But I really liked the history stuff when they talk about like how the guy was actually able to get John Madden on board and how they worked with Sega, how they actually broke down the Sega Genesis legally with a team of lawyers for it.
Oh, I really want to see that.
It's actually really good. It's a very, very fun watch for those for the past stuff. Even if I forgave some of the current stuff they talk about, which I don't care about. But it's a definite good watch.
All right, well, the time's got us. Make sure you check that out. I will be checking that out as well. Special thanks to Bill Ratner, 8-Bit Eric, Phil Lamar, and Stan Lee, rest in peace. So that's it for Geek Time. Make sure you check us out next time. Same bad time, same bad channel. And that does it. And that does it for Geek Time.
Live long and prosper.
Geek Time.